Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining and listening into this recording, GLP-1s, the Real Talk webinar. This is a conversation that I wish I had been able to have years ago when I started my GLP-1 journey, unfiltered, evidence-based, and judgment-free. Before we get too far into this, I just want to let you know I am a certified menopause coach and a lipedema advocate, but I'm not a doctor, I'm not a pharmacist, and I'm not your provider. This is simply information sharing, not medical advice. I will never be able to tell you my dose, your dose, when to dose, how to titrate, because that is between you and your prescribing physician. What I will do, though, is share what the research is showing, what I'm seeing in the community, and what questions I think every woman should be asking her doctor. Your job is just to listen and leave with better questions, not a prescription plan. So if you've been in this community any length of time, you've seen this picture. It's anchored right on my profile. And this was where I started. Back in November of 22, I weighed 167 pounds. I had PCOS, which I had no idea that I had. I had lipedema, which I had no idea that I had. And my ovaries had retired, which I had no idea. They had thrown that party because I was not invited. But really, I was in this pit of apathy. I had been there for about a year where I say my people didn't look as cute as they used to. Everything bothered me. I was agitated all the time. I was just meh for way too long. Yes, there was some joy in that year. Yes, there was some heartache. Yes, life comes with normal challenges, but I just didn't feel like myself. And it wasn't until late fall of 22 that I really decided I've got to change something, or else I am just going to continue gaining weight. Month after month, my legs were changing, my ankles were changing. I was literally hiding my body from myself. Fast forward, I decided to do 75 hard, which if you guys have heard anything about that, they talk about it as a weight loss system. It's really not. It's a mental overhaul. It's a habit overhaul. And what I learned was that I could do hard things, just like you can do hard things. But I also learned that even though I was killing myself, that program was not sustainable. I was doing two 45-minute workouts, one outside. I started strength training. It was just so incredibly difficult. And I lost 14 pounds through that, which we might be okay with, but considering the input that I was putting into that restoration of myself, trying to find myself, it really was a flag that something else was going on. So we did some additional lab work. That's when I learned that I had PCOS. Recently, they're calling it, it just got a name overhaul this week. Now it's called PMOS, really dialing into it being that metabolic dumpster fire that so many of us are dismissed for. At that point was when I decided to add in a compounded tirzepatide, a compounded GLP-1. And it truly was the missing piece because I already had implemented those lifestyle changes that you have to have if you're going to go on a GLP-1 or start this journey. The picture below is my legs the morning of my lipedema removal surgery, which was in February of 24. As you can see in that top picture, from the very far left side to the right side, I was able to make a huge overhaul. I was able to help my body release about 37 pounds. She made some big changes to my legs, but I clearly still had lipedema. You can see that in the picture below. So I never, ever want to mislead you and say, heck yeah, I removed all my lipedema. No, I did eventually have surgery, but I also was able to make great strides with the addition of a GLP-1. What I did when I was preparing for this seminar, this webinar, if you will, was I asked you, what questions do you have that I can better answer for you, or at least point you in the right direction so that we can help eliminate some of the confusion, the shame, some of the different emotions that can be tied to a GLP-1, to these peptides from social media and from just media in general. So one of the questions that we're starting with tonight, I got so many times, and this was a super popular question. My BMI is healthy, but I still have lipedema. Do I qualify? Would a GLP-1 be too aggressive for someone petite? And I want to just remind you that these peptides are so much more than a weight loss tool. This is a conversation that you absolutely should be having with a knowledgeable provider, but your BMI is only one data point. Your lipedema staging, your pain, your mobility, inflammation, all of those pieces matter as well. And you are not disqualified from the conversation simply because you are not chasing weight loss. I myself was able to release that weight that I was explaining in the previous slide. And then I have used these on and off to help maintain not only my weight, but the inflammation. It has been pivotal in controlling the inflammation that I do feel in my ankles post surgery. We can remove that lipedema, but especially for type 5, which is what I have, where the lipedema is contained from my knees to my ankles, you're not able to get all that lipedema from the ankles, especially my right ankle. So I still will experience flares. And I find using a super small dose of compounded tirzepatide has helped keep those flares at bay. I experience them far less than I was when I was off the GLP-1 and post-surgical. So hopefully that helps kind of clear that up a little bit. Usually how it's addressed in the telehealth platform is a BMI of 27 and over, you're still in that weight loss bucket. We still need to help the body release some of that extra weight. Under 27, a BMI under 27, you would look at the microdosing route. So that just gives you a little more clarification in that area. Are all GLP-1 shots, are there pills, or is there natural alternatives? So this is such a great question. Most current GLP-1 receptor antagonists are injectable. Semaglutide, tirzepatide being the two most popular, and those name brands are Ozempic, Wegovy, and the Mounjaro and Zepbound for tirzepatide. There is an oral version of semaglutide. It does exist, but it's dosed much higher usually because it's absorbed differently. And the key piece that we want to keep in mind is these GLP-1s, these weight loss injections are injections because it goes straight to the bloodstream. So it's bypassing our stomach acid, that breakdown process, which helps it actually be more powerful and do what it needs to do. In the oral versions, that's why the dose is going to tend to be much higher, because you are going through the stomach system, going through our digestive tract, and it would be faced with those stomach acids. So that's one of the main reasons that when we're looking at a GLP-1, we do want to lean into those injections. It's a super, super tiny needle. It doesn't hurt, and you're helping your body get the most powerful form of that injection. As far as natural alternatives go, we really want to keep in mind that natural alternatives is a marketing phrase. The body does produce its own GLP-1 in response to fiber, protein, fermented foods, and certain bitter compounds. These supporting endogenous GLP-1s, but do not replicate the pharmacological dosing for a disease state like lipedema. So all that means is that there could be natural alternatives out there. What I have found personally, what I found in the community, natural alternatives that might help boost our GLP-1 production usually are not strong enough to help with the fibrotic, the inflammation, the pain that we experience with lipedema. Our third question tonight, hair loss. Have you experienced it, and what helps? I personally have not experienced hair loss when it comes to using a GLP-1 injection. I actually, shortly after starting tirzepatide back in the spring of 23, a few months in, I started Googling, can a GLP-1 actually improve your hair? Now, there is very anecdotal information that says that they could actually support that. But what I think was happening in my case was that I had improved my diet so much. I wasn't eating as much garbage, and I was finally focusing on protein. It's like something we've been inundated with forever. We have to get that protein in. But once I finally stepped in and honored that, my hair did improve. So again, not something that I personally experienced, but it is a popular question in this space. So we do want to keep that at the forefront of our mind is protein focused diet. If that's keto for you and that works, I personally have never done well with keto, but we just want to be mindful that the first macro we're concerned with each day is that protein. We want to aim to get adequate protein, and usually you can work with your provider and help get that number. When I'm coaching ladies, depending on if they enjoy protein or if it's more difficult like me, I have some weird texture aversions and we won't go into that, but protein is a little more difficult for me. I don't like chicken, I don't like steak, so I have to do seafood, Greek yogurt, some of the other more creative forms of protein. And with that being said, I shoot for 0.6 grams of protein for my goal weight. So if I'm 130 pounds, 0.6 grams per goal weight, that's roughly about 75 to 80 grams of protein a day. I find that has worked fantastic for me. And you can shoot for anywhere between 0.6 grams up to 1 gram per goal weight, so your desired weight. Another key piece is getting your labs done. If your hair is impacted, are you low in iron, ferritin, vitamin D, zinc, B12? These are other minerals that could be depleted that could absolutely impact how your hair is responding once you add in the GLP-1. We want to make sure that we do not undereat. Appetite suppression can silently push you into a severe caloric deficit. We're going to talk about that a bit more on another slide. But we really want to be mindful that we're getting adequate fuel to fuel our body. Hydration and sleep always matter. They're foundational pieces of our health. Some functional medicine providers will also explore adding in other peptides to support you in this space if we're having difficulties with our hair. But this is, again, a conversation that we want to have with a qualified provider, not something that we do all on our own. One of the most popular questions that I get surrounds thyroid cancer. So since I'm not a doctor, I gave that disclosure at the top of the call. I thought that it would be best to lean in and hear and I think my face might be covering it here. One of the leading physician's assistants, and completely left my brain there, in this space has to say about this. So I just want to play this recording so that you can hear what's the truth about the thyroid cancer risk and how bad is it?
Black box warning. So the black box warning came about because when they studied these meds on rats, they noticed an increase in incidence of a specific kind of thyroid cancer called medullary thyroid carcinoma. It's one of the most rare forms of thyroid cancer. It accounts for about 3% of thyroid cancers. So obviously uncommon. The unique thing that was happening is rats, number one, have incredibly dense GLP receptors specifically on their thyroid. Oh. So they receive a lot of that medication locally here. Mm-hmm. Number two, they were given 20 to 100 times the human equivalent dose.
Whoa.
So number one, we aren't rats. Number two, we do not have dense GLP receptors on our thyroid. And number three, we do not take 20 to 100 times the human equivalent dose. So when you look at actual studies that compare people on GLPs to other diabetes medications, because these meds, again, they've been used for decades. This is not what you hear about on social media. Well, you just wait 10 years and 20 years and let's see what happens. No, we actually already have that data. People have been on these meds for 20 years. So when they compare GLPs and other diabetic medications, let's say insulin, metformin, there is no increased risk for GLPs and thyroid cancer of any kind in humans, including medullary thyroid carcinoma. In fact, it's been found that insulin is a higher risk for thyroid cancer than GLPs, and insulin does not carry any risk for thyroid cancer with using it. So I think it's important people know the difference. Now, would I put a patient of mine with a history of medullary thyroid carcinoma, or if her mother had medullary thyroid carcinoma, I wouldn't. But do I have patients with plenty of other forms of thyroid cancer in their history on these meds? I absolutely do.
I find that so interesting because That's one of the biggest pushbacks you'll hear in the anti-GLP-1 community is it's going to give you thyroid cancer. So I just found it incredibly important. As always, we want to make sure that we do an in-depth family history with your provider. This isn't something we want to skim over. If that type of cancer has been in your bloodline, if that's something that your family has battled, we want to make sure we're talking about this with a board certified licensed practitioner that's going to look at prescribing this for you. But it also helps clear it up for us that we're not rats and we do not have condensed GLP-1 receptors in our throat, our thyroid. That would probably be a little more accurate. So hopefully that bit of information just gives you a little bit more to mull over. Again, I'm always pointing you, do your own research, go follow McCall McPherson. She's incredibly informed and just really passionate, not only about GLP-1s, but also about thyroid health. So hopefully that's helpful in that, in answering that question or pointing you in the right direction. How do I make myself when I have no appetite? So this is such an important question because having a suppressed appetite, while initially could feel like a win, it's not a win. The Lord gave us very specific hormones, ghrelin, our hunger hormone, and leptin, which tells us when we're full. The Lord included these hormones in our makeup to help us stay alive, right? We need fuel, we need food to be able to function. So I just want to make sure that if you are on a dose of a GLP-1 and you cannot eat, if you have no appetite, we really need to talk to our provider about decreasing that dose. An appropriate dose would still encourage your appetite. We still want to be able to eat. We still need to be able to eat. If this is something, especially I find sometimes on day 2, if I've had a little break from my GLP-1 and I come back, it's usually day 2 that I'm like, meh, I am not hungry. And I will eat by the clock versus what my stomach is telling me. So that's another way that we can make sure that we are fueling our body appropriately. Eat by a clock, not by hunger. Set 3 anchors a day. Front load protein. You're going to hear me say that so often from my platform in the community, here in this webinar. And if it's difficult to actually chomp and chew some protein, go for liquid protein. Do some bone broth, some protein shakes. It's an easier way and can help avoid any food aversions that you might be experiencing. Smaller volume, higher density foods. I literally eat Greek yogurt every single day. I have eggs a lot of days. Cottage cheese is another popular protein product in our house. I prefer to do the lactose-free cottage cheese. Make sure too that we identify foods that still work. Every woman has a short list of foods that don't trigger that aversion. So build around those temporarily. Track protein and calories for 1 week. If this is an area where you're struggling, I think you'd really be surprised to see, my goodness, I am not taking in nearly enough calories. I want to make sure that I discuss this with my provider. Super important that we still fuel our body. Question number 6. Will a GLP-1 actually reduce the size of lipedema nodules? When will I see changes? And here's what women in the community report. They're reporting reduced pain, reduced inflammation, improved mobility, softer tissue where they felt like their legs were just always so hard before visible size changes. Some do report nodule changes over longer time frames. But I want to remind you that lipedema is a years-long disease. Healing it is years-long as well. Learning to live with it is going to take us time. If you've been on a GLP-1 for 1 week and you're asking why your legs don't look different, we're asking the wrong questions. We really want to be in tune with, is my pain improving? Is my inflammation less? Do I have less aches, less heaviness, less pain in the impacted areas? That's going to be the first wave of what we will notice. Now, I unfortunately did not know when I started my GLP-1 that I had lipedema. So I don't even have my own anecdotal information to share with you. I remember my legs feeling better, but my whole body was feeling better. It was that missing piece. I had all the other pieces of the puzzle in line. I was working out, I was eating appropriately, drinking water, working on my sleep hygiene, really the foundational pieces that we want to make sure we're encouraging and being mindful of. But I wasn't measuring my legs as much as I should have. I never had fibrotic tissue. So there's a lot of these pieces that I just personally can't explain. But I know repeatedly in this community, we hear over and over and over about inflammation being less, pain being less, mobility improving. I just saw one of the comments in my group this week. One of my admins actually had knee surgery, had to have a knee replacement surgery, her second one, because with lipedema, we're 4 times more likely to have knee replacement surgery. But this second knee replacement, so she'd done the other one previously last year, replaced the other knee. I can't remember if it was right or left, and it really doesn't matter. But she had to take a break from her GLP-1, and she was still dealing with a lot of swelling, etc. The minute she added that GLP-1 back in, the inflammation started to dissipate almost immediately. So again, there's so many pieces way far outside, far beyond just weight loss. I really hope that message sinks in after this webinar, that this isn't just weight loss. Like, that's the sprinkles on top of the cake. Yes, it feels good to help our body release that extra weight. But my goodness, when we're talking about menopause symptoms and lipedema, we really want to be mindful that it's so much more than that. Question 7, another super popular question that we get all the time. Do I have to stay on it for life? Are you still on it after surgery? So honest answer, we don't know yet. We don't know what optimal long-term protocols look like for lipedema specifically. We have one published peer review that is talking about how it can address the root cause of lipedema. So it's really diving into, could this actually change the trajectory of this? And that's such an exciting conversation, but it's an evolving conversation. For obesity and type 2 diabetes, data does show weight regain after stopping, but lipedema is a completely different disease state. So we can't compare obesity and lipedema. It's apples and pizza, right? Like, it's two totally different animals. And so we want to make sure that we are just working with, again, a licensed doctor that knows us, that's in tune, and really tracking our progress so that we know, is this something I'm going to need for a long time? Is this just a bridge? That's another place where a lot of women will fall into. They're using it just as a bridge to reduce that inflammation pre-surgery, to maintain post-surgery, or long-term low-dose maintenance, which is the bucket that I fall into. Super low dose. Again, at the top of this call, I said I can't share it's liability purposes. We have to be as careful as possible. I don't want to put you at risk by giving you incorrect information. But what I can share, and what I do share on my platform, the standard starting dose is 2.5 milligrams. I never, ever, ever, ever have been there. I've usually at half, if not a little less than half of that. So you can do a little math, reverse engineer, if you even care. I mean, really, it's what works for me. Your dose could be different. Your dose could be higher. Your body could have different needs than mine. Again, it doesn't matter. It's just a tool that you can work with your doctor to find out what's best. The last question that we have in this webinar is, okay, what's the monthly cost? How do I trace which pharmacy compounded my vial? So this is such an important question because we're seeing opportunities, locations, places that you can purchase GLP-1s popping up almost daily. You can get them at your drugstore. You can get them at, I think Amazon is coming out with them. I heard when I was at Kroger doing some grocery shopping, you can get them from Kroger. I mean, literally all of these places are popping up because it's such a rich industry. There's a lot of money to be made. And I share that only because I want you to be safe. I want you to be safe when you're out there. There's what's called the gray and black market, and that means we're having peptides shipped over, we're reconstituting themselves, and we have no idea what's in that vial. We have no idea where that powder is, if it's contaminated, if it actually is a GLP-1. Was it made, we don't have enough information when we're shopping from these online platforms, some of these online platforms. One of the biggest safety recommendations I can give to you is look for this little, I put this little screenshot here, legit script certified. And why that's important is because that's the FDA's stamp of approval on a telehealth platform, on the telehealth platform, as well as the pharmacy that's compounding these GLP-1s and peptides for you. Less than 1% of telehealth platforms actually get this legit script certification. So again, it's super important that we do our own due diligence because it is important that you have and know exactly where your GLP-1s, where your peptides are coming from. Whenever you're using a 503A, so again, that's the FDA approved 503A is a compounding pharmacy. They are required by law to not only have the pharmacy name, but also the pharmacy license number as well. So those are some just guidelines, some pro tips for you that can help you identify, am I shopping from a safe source, right? And as far as cost goes, you will see costs all over the place. And that's why it can be enticing to think, why would I pay $250 from this legit script certified platform versus $100 from this online provider? They look good. It looks like a solid source, right? Those are the questions that we really want to ask. How important is your health? How important is that you are actually injecting something into your body that you know exactly where it came from? Additionally, when we're working with a legit script certified telehealth vendor, we know that that telehealth doctor, that board certified physician is in for the long haul. That's why it was really important. My husband and I worked with a clinical integrative team and created MyCareMD. And that was so important to me because as I got more involved in this community and heard more and more success stories with compounded tirzepatide specifically, I was also hearing pushback. I was hearing of individuals that really just needed to stay super, super low dose. They needed to stay on just that tiny little bit, every 7 days or so, but they were in this cookie cutter profile and this cookie cutter protocol, excuse me, and they were just being, their levels were being titrated up, titrated up, titrated up, titrated up. And there wasn't that precision care. And that just wasn't good enough. I wanted to be able to lock arms and support and help create a platform that could actually give you precision care. I want you to be safe. I want you to have unlimited access to your doctor so that if you do have some nausea or you do feel a little queasy or you don't feel that it's working like it should, you can go directly to your doctor and talk about that. Was this dose too high? Was it too low? Do we need to do it twice a week to split it up? There's so many things that we can do when we have precision care, when we actually have a provider in our pocket, in our corner that has our whole family history, understands what we're dealing with, understands where we are in our menopause cycle. There's so many pieces that go into that. And that's why it's super important. It was super important to me to have something to offer you. Our prices, another key piece that I also wanted that was super, super important to us was flat pricing. I hear far too often ladies that will get on their compounded tirzepatide, they feel fantastic. The inflammation is down, their mobility is up, their mood, they feel like themselves again. That's usually the first thing I hear is, I feel like myself again. And that is, it's invaluable. That's something that we just can't put a price tag on, right? Is like, I always say, if mom feels good, everybody feels good, right? If mom's putting on her oxygen mask and is actually taking care of herself, your family does better. The community does better. So it's just coming back to that. But what I was seeing is that individuals, these ladies would get on these protocols, they'd start feeling better and things are moving in the right direction, but they might need a little bit more and the prices were titrating up and they could no longer afford it. With MyCareMD, we've got flat rates. So whatever you start out, that's your flat price. Even if you titrate up, you've got to go up 2, 3, 4 times. You're still locked in at that same rate. Another bonus that I was able to negotiate as we were building this out is every single time you order, you're getting 10% off. Using Kristen 10, you're getting 10% off every single order. So refills, first time, and that's site wide. We're adding in new peptides all the time. We're adding in NAD now. We've got some sermorelin, some of the other popular tools that you're hearing about all the time. And as those continue through FDA approval, you'll see that offering, you'll see that shop grow. So that is another huge piece that, again, you know, you're safe, you're you're in the nest, we're taken care of, we've got the doctor that's looking over us and making sure we're doing all the pieces, not just the medicine. We're making sure that we're eating our protein and getting our exercise and sleep and all the other habits that can truly make this successful. So I hope that this information has been helpful to you. If you have any questions, be sure I send out emails all the time. You can respond to any of those emails. I read everything that you guys send. You can also find me in DMs, so you can send me a DM there. Again, I appreciate each and every one of you for joining tonight. Thank you so much. God bless.